Welcome, everybody, to another another spoiler review episode of Ted Lasso here on the Outlaw Nation channel. I am the Outlaw John Rocha, joined as always by my fellow Geek Buddy and massive Ted Lasso fan, Shannon McClung. How are you?
Oh, John, I was feeling so good about the world. I usually watch Ted Lasso to feel better, but some of our characters are taking us down a road. It's making me sad.
Well, Shannon, this has been the complaint all season. You know, I've been reading all kinds of pieces this week about the backlash to the Ted Lasso backlash, which of course is inevitable. It's always inevitable. Once you fall in love with something, we've seen it. Shannon, you and I both live long enough to see the public or the mainstream pop culture fall in love with something and then immediately start to deconstruct it and destroy it almost right as it hits its peak and starts tumbling downward. So there's a lot of backlash. And then this episode comes along in the midst of that backlash. And I wonder if now some of these people who are only watching it episode by episode have to kind of take a step back and reassess this season. We shall see. This episode certainly was chock full of a lot of storylines that might turn a little darker or uncomfortable as we go along, Shannon.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, Ted Lasso is one of those shows that makes you feel good, but if you have anything that's just 100% unadulterated, just unfiltered sweetness, it loses its effect. And what makes an interesting story are those dark moments, are those peaks and valleys. And we definitely have some of our characters that are in a valley right now, and time will only tell if they'll come out of that valley back into a peak. I mean, but again, I think you and I are both on the same page that we're really both enjoying this season of Ted Lasso, even though we might not feel as great as we did at the end of season one. It's still a very compelling story, and I think that's a big credit to the writers and the cast that you are so involved. I mean, these people that did make you feel so good. That's when you know you love a character. Is you don't want to see that character suffer.
Absolutely, absolutely, and certainly we're going to see our characters suffering a little bit and suffering maybe inside themselves a little bit too as we go along in this review episode. Again, this is a spoiler review episode. This is episode 7, Headspace of Ted Lasso season 2. This one's written by Jason Sudeikis, Bill Lawrence, Brendan Hunt, and Joe Kelly, so all of them involved to write this one. And the way we break this thing down is not the way we do normal Geek Buddy reviews or reviews with the Geek Buddies where we go section by section. We just do storylines here and break them down. So let's start with the first storyline here. I think the Roy and Keeley storyline has to lead us off here. Shannon, this seems to have come out of nowhere because we seem to have been presented with a very strong relationship that is developing and growing. She's been helping Roy through these last few episodes kind of come out of this fear of confronting his life post-playing career in his retirement, what he's going to do. He was hiding out coaching the girls' soccer team, hiding out being a pundit. Now he is back to be a coach. This is where he's probably meant to be because he loves it so much. But now, since he's come back, we're seeing this whole thing of him and Keeley being around each other all the time and the problems that is causing for Keeley because she needs her space. Shannon, you and I have been in multiple relationships. We know, or you have to learn that lesson sometimes, that you need that space. What do you think about this whole storyline, how it all came about, Keeley talking about it in Will's hangout area with the cleats there, and Roy finally discovering what Keeley was actually wanting, thanks to, of all people, Jamie Tart. What did you think?
You know what? I mean, it does seem like it came out of nowhere, but if you look sort of logistically at everything that happens, they did have time apart. I mean, whatever Keeley's job is, I mean, it does keep her, it keeps her busy. When he was doing the pundit stuff, I imagine that would keep him busy. Right. So suddenly when you have these people who spend an incredible amount of time together, suddenly all of that time is then together. Like they don't have a break from each other. These moments are going to happen. And because, we've seen demonstrated that Keeley is such a sweet character, she doesn't necessarily know how to approach that, how to say, this is what I need. And that results in that blow up as she's watching Sex and the City and watching Roy Kent read the Da Vinci Code years after, that ship has kind of sailed. But literally, he's vocalizing these things that I think we all thought of at the time when we read that first book or the second book. It was just like, it is a page turner because the chapters are so short. You can't put it down. Every chapter ends with an aha. I mean, so it makes perfect sense. But watching Keeley slowly lose it, and you intercut that with the scene from Sex and the City between Sarah Jessica Parker and John Corbin.
Corbett.
Corbett. Like I watched Sex and the City. I don't remember that episode, but you don't need to have any knowledge of the show to see the parallels that were going on here. Look, I mean, they are just one of the sweetest television couples, and I feel like all season there has been a dread that Jamie Tart's back. Something's gonna happen. Something's gonna happen, and really, it just seems they're just kind of working. Not even the kinks. They're figuring out this new dynamic. But I think this is the story that left us on a high note, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you 1,000%. And I really enjoyed the fact that we got into that with them and got to see the progression. Because how many of us, and I'm sure a lot of you watching, and many people who watch Ted Lasso have experienced this in their own relationships, thanks to COVID, thanks to being shut in, thanks to being, having to quarantine with people or stuck with people before people have started to go back to work now over the last few months. There were a lot of we saw a lot of celebrity relationships divorce or break up in the gossip pages because of having to be around each other for so long. It was nice when we wouldn't be around each other for so much, but now that we're in a confined space, I actually do hate you and don't want to be with you anymore. So quite a few relationships, but other relationships were strengthened. Like the Lady Outlaw and I spend a lot of time near each other, but our relationship has been really strong because we're both independent people and respect each other's need for space. And that's a stage in a relationship, right? And you see it here done so well because Roy does storm out, and he's like, because obviously he's not that very schooled in relationships, I would imagine, and it's only through soccer or football. It is football because it's life. Football teaches him that it's about space and doing what's best to give the other teammates space to do his work rather than crowding him. Like Roy was doing with Keeley, he figures that out through Jamie Tartt, and it's a brilliant moment. It's very well written. Whoever wrote that scene or put that scene in there, very, very smart to lead us up to that moment. And his reaction, Roy's reactions that are getting caught up in that male shit that sometimes dudes get caught up in, he actually understands, and because he understands, he creates this bubble bath and then says, you're not going to see me for 3 hours. I'm rolling out of here. And Keeley totally appreciates it and respects it. Her instinct is to say no, but she's very appreciative that he wants to give that to her. And sometimes space is essential. You got to have enough confidence in your relationship that taking space or giving space doesn't mean your partner's going to run off with somebody else. You got to be secure enough to understand you've done enough work here to keep the relationship going, and space is a good thing. Right, Shannon?
Well, it's also interesting the how his vulnerability manifests itself as anger.
Yeah, always.
Like that moment that he feels embarrassed.
Yes.
That he explodes. But as you said, of all people, it was Jamie Tartt who inadvertently
he wasn't doing it on purpose.
No. I don't think he would deliberately help Roy in that way at all. but the way that through football, through his first love,
right?
He's able to extrapolate things that he needs to apply in his everyday life.
Right. And I think it's brilliant too, because Roy helped Jamie last episode embrace who he really is or needs to be to help the team. Here's Jamie, as you said, inadvertently helping Roy out in his life, so repaying him in a way. So I thought that was a really sweet part of this episode, and we'll see what happens with Roy and Keeley as we go forward. All right, let's move on to the second part of this second storyline running through this thing, or I guess one of the 4 storylines running this. The second one here is Rebecca. Right, we have Rebecca, and she has yet to respond to the request from who we know now is Sam. They run into each other in the hall, but they're not on their phone, so they don't know that it's each other. And she's unaware, and she's still on the fence, and what have you. But they are pushing her to go and meet him, go meet up with him, and see what the deal is. So, what did you think about this progressing of this situation. Are you getting more and more comfortable with this possibility, or is this possibility starting to worry you a little bit? Because she's an owner, he's a player, and also how that could blow up in the face in terms of drama and tabloid scandal as well.
Well, I mean, I think more like in terms of whether or not do they or will they or won't they. I'm along for the ride. Like, I have no dog in the fight as to which way the story is going to go.
Right.
I'm more looking at sort of the logistical, from the logistical angle of she is an owner, he is a player,
right?
And there is an age difference, but I think we're kind of in a time now that that's not as big a deal. My guess is she might be 20 plus years his senior. That's kind of my guess. But again, we're in a time where that doesn't matter as much for some folks. Like, there's definitely going to.
I think we're in a time where if a woman does it with a man, it doesn't matter as much. We are in a time where if a man was to kind of do that with a 20-year-old woman, it might look a little like they're taking advantage of their position or grooming that person or what have you. So, yeah, but I do think we're more accepting of it from the woman's point of view, because like that hasn't been an acceptable thing for a long time. So society is kind of balancing the scales a little bit. I think I don't know.
I think if you remove the ownership angle, you remove the professional dynamic that they have. If you just look at the age, I think it's probably more common for a much older man to be with a much younger woman. Like, that
which is the complaint. You're right. Yeah. But yes, it is common. Yes. Go ahead.
But I think you add that professional angle and automatically, like, it just presents roadblocks. And there have been so many surprises this season. Again, at this point, I feel like as a production, as a creative team, they've earned our trust.
Yeah.
So again, that's kind of why I'm on the ride for this. Like, I don't know how this works, but I'm curious to find out.
Yeah, me too. I'm worried what it could lead to. Because once again, this is one of those storylines, Shannon, we mentioned at the end of last week. Like, once you walk that high up the high wire, you got to make sure you walk it correctly, because it could look bad. I mean, you've got a young black man with an older white woman. You've got the fact that she's an owner. He's a player. Remember, his dad is very much a part of his life and very much influences his life. What's his reaction going to be to this situation? So, you've got these other factors, her ex-husband, Ted, the team. Will the team start to be like, oh, she's favoring Sam over them? So it's fraught with peril to go down this road. So as story creators and as writers, I hope that they are dealing with all the aspects of this possibility as the next few episodes unfold. But I'm curious. I'm very curious to see what happens. Yeah.
I mean, based off the episodes, I mean, and granted, like, it has a smaller episode order.
Yeah.
They, to my knowledge, they've yet to kind of hit the eject button on any of their storylines.
Yeah.
Now,
no. They always come back to them. Yeah.
But math, it could happen at some point. I hope this isn't it, because I do think, even though, like, we have no idea which way this is going to go, I think it is really interesting storytelling, because I think both of the actors do such a good job, and it'll be interesting to see how they work that out.
Yeah. And, and this has happened before. Someone in our previous review, Shannon, someone in the comments section alerted me to into a situation that happened in a lower division in English football, where the managing director of a club became romantically involved with a player of the club, but there was only 2 years age difference, and that person wasn't the owner of the club. They were the managing director. This difference there, and they're still married now with kids. So it can work out. But the age difference was only 2 years there in that situation. So we shall see. All right. Well, let's move on to the other huge storyline here, and that is the furthering of Ted Lasso and Dr. Sharon Fieldstone, their issues here. Listen, as someone who's been through 2 bouts of separate therapy for a concentrated amount of time over a number of years, I get everything Ted Lasso was going through in these early initial conversations with Dr. Fieldstone. And then, he kind of, Ted, like other people we've seen this season, he has that anger gear. He has that mean gear that is in there. He's not all just sunshine and rainbows. Remember, he was watching It's a Wonderful Life with that suicide episode. He's just gone through a divorce from a few months ago. He's got a kid he doesn't see all the time. So he's got the panic attacks. There is this kind of other side of Ted bubbling underneath at times that will pop out. And the way he went after Dr. Fieldstone, calling her essentially a bullshit artist and saying you only care about me because you're getting paid to care about me was pretty unsettling. But then having him come back and her to say, well, don't you care about your players? But are you getting paid to care about your players? And all of that really kind of bore some fruit with Ted. And she did say, which I thought was a really honest moment here, the truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. I can absolutely tell you that's the truth. So, Shannon, what did you think about this development in this professional relationship and possibly burgeoning friendship between these two colleagues?
I was in couples therapy with my ex-wife years ago, and and a lot of the things that Ted spoke on really resonated with me.
Okay.
Because there is, again, for any of our audience that has been to therapy, for me, I had a really hard time with the spill my guts, let me talk about all my problems with this person who doesn't know me, and then we need to settle the bill at the end. Like there is, I at this point, I still don't think I'm mature enough to compartmentalize that. It was hard for me. It was hard for me to reconcile with that.
Really? Wow.
Okay. Yeah. It's still, it's a weird shift that you have to go through from being so emotionally raw and so emotionally vulnerable to then compensating someone to then like, well, here, don't forget to pay me. Now I understand that that's like, if you were to go to get your knee checked out, if you were going to a knee doctor, like I'm telling you everything that's wrong with my knee. Right. I don't think it's weird to then settle up. Like, so it's, the issue is on this side of the table.
My brother's got a few more steps in his journey. I respect that. And I totally hear you. I've never had that issue because I've always seen it as an exchange of services. And also if I got something out of it, then it was worth it. But I can understand your point of view for sure, man. Yeah. Ed was echoing that because I'm sure a lot of men have that point of view. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, I'm not talking down to therapy. Like I'm not that's not me kind of taking the piss out of it. Like it's like that. For anything, like, yes, you have to pay for a service. Like that's how it works. It's just for me, it was just sort of emotionally tumultuous. Yeah, I'm sure. But listening to Ted sort of like you see sort of the process that he goes through. I mean, the funny thing that Dr. Sharon said at the end was the fight or flight is a normal response. The fact that you did them both was something else. But watching how, I mean, again, this is Sharon being such a pro. Yeah. The way that she can say, like, you deeply offended me with that statement. And hearing those truths, sometimes that's hard for us. And the fact that Ted was able to take that in and was able to process it, and that he didn't blow up or run. The fact that, like, we see that he is making some progress on this journey. The whole first session was so uncomfortable. Because you could see what was happening. Like this is a guy who's used to taking care of everyone else, and he's also stalling a little bit because he knew what he was doing. I mean, this is
the whole slalom thing on the couch, and I've wasted so much of your time. No, bullshit. He knew. Yeah, you're right.
But I mean, again, I think we ended on a high with them, and we've seen so many like public figures take their lives, and you hear, or like there was an article that had shown like, hey, this is a post that they did 2 days before, and you see them happy and smiling, and sometimes it's those people that put up the best front, the ones that are hurting the most.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's something that Robin Williams, a lot of people were like, my God, if he had just reached out, I would have hugged him, I would have helped him, I would have done whatever. And it's like, that's not what this is about. As someone who has struggled with suicidal feelings or with feelings of real deep depression or self-worth issues for a number of years I mean, for a majority of them, I didn't even know what those were. I thought they were just natural. And it wasn't until I went through therapy that I started to understand what those actually were. And sometimes you don't know, you don't see that kind of stuff. And you watch and you see other people who you think are incredibly successful or happy, or they look to be, they're funny making jokes. They're not wanting for work. It blows your mind when they take their lives, but there's always the inner struggle that everyone is going through because of perspective. Everyone has their own idea of what is success, what is great, what is happiness, what is life, what is good in life. And so sometimes, and also sometimes that doesn't always match up with what you think on the outside, seeing their life as well. And then the internal struggles about those feelings. When those feelings come for you, it doesn't matter how much money you have or who you have in your life. It can make you feel solitary and completely alone and in a black box with just a spotlight on you. That's the way it can make you feel. I'm sure, Shannon, you've had panic attacks or you've had moments like that yourself as you've navigated life. Most performers do, and it's the worst. So seeing Ted go through this process, I hope there were people watching this who maybe open their minds a little bit more to therapy or open their ideas to possibly trying therapy out. Seeing Ted go through essentially the 7 stages of not wanting to do this thing, and then eventually eventually opening the door to the possibility, and Dr. Fieldstone doing an incredible job of navigating that with him and being honest about her feelings. And I thought, as you brought up, Shannon, I thought that was a great moment when she said to him, honestly, you hurt my feelings, which is something Ted takes so seriously, So
Right.
I thought it was a fantastic part of this episode for sure.
She can't be his mentor without being his tour mentor.
Yes. That's right. All right. We've been delaying it. Let's get into the big storyline here, brother man. Coach Nate. Wow. Someone we cheered for all through season 1. Small guy. He was essentially Will's job. He was the equipment manager. He was probably abused by everybody, it seemed like, at the club. By Rebecca couldn't remember his name. I'm sure Higgins, gave him a bunch of crap. I'm sure the former managers gave him. The players are making fun of him. So Ted took it upon himself to really, and Coach Beard took it upon themselves to really give Nate some agency, really give Nate a voice, to hear his points of views on tactics, to hear his points of views on substitutions, who's playing well, who's not playing well. And coming into season 2, we've kind of vacillated with Nate, right? We've had those moments where he's treated Will like shit, but then he's a guy who can't even get a reservation at a restaurant without help from Keeley and Rebecca. And we saw a little bit of the evil Nate come out, and then it really came out in this episode. The back and forth with him and Colin. I mean, we called Colin adult last week, and then this week kind of doubles down on it. It goes beyond the ball busting. It went to like a really personal, angry place. And then at the end, what he does to Will, the fact that they did that off screen is tantamount to an R-rated scene, in my opinion. It's so brutal what he does to him, that we had to watch it from another room. It made us feel helpless. It was a brilliant decision by the director to do that, and it really hammered the point home that this is a person who is capable of some true evil in the world, man. Aside from all the nebbish whatever, he actually is capable of some pretty evil, angry things. And even when he's made to apologize, a couple of days later, he goes right back into that mode. Whereas Jamie Tart is slowly learning his lesson. I feel like Nate is devolving rather than evolving. And that social media stuff can't help him either. What do you think about all of this and where we ended the episode and that off camera, essentially verbal beatdown by Nate to Will?
Well, I don't want to use the word evil, because even though what he did was super shitty, this is a guy, this is a damaged individual. This is someone who is repeating the patterns that they have learned. I mean,
great.
he's turning into his dad.
A bullied person becoming a bully. Great point.
Yep.
Yes. Sorry. Go ahead. Yes.
He's essentially becoming his father.
Yeah.
And you see that he started with his bullying. He started with the equipment manager.
Right.
He's now moved up to a low-level player. I mean, he when Jamie and Danny both kind of gave him a little bit of ball busting.
Yeah.
He retracted, but with Colin, he went back at him because you know he's figuring out, okay, what can I get away with, but because again, I don't think this is some master plan. I think that he's very reactionary. But he sees now, like, okay, I can go at Colin. And then when Beard steps in and says, no, you can't, he then goes back to, like, he doubles down on Will. Like he takes this sweet gesture and just throws it in his face. Like, never embarrass me again. I mean, the fact that they did choose to shoot that from outside the room. I mean, such a great storytelling tool to do something like that, because as you said, it's like it's going to be too intense for us to hear, or too intense for us to watch. Excuse me. To witness. Perfect. It was just such a bummer. And you know, the whole social media thing, you know, you see all these people that love you and saying, like, are you ready? Is he ready to coach his own team? He's the best. He's the wonder kid.
Right.
And then that one negative comment, because they talk about all the time how we can get 9 positives and 1 negative, but it's the negative that we're going to focus on. And Nate is definitely on a dark path right now. I mean, he is bullying Will the way he was bullied, but he's worse right now. Yeah. So it was just a heartbreaking story to watch.
I agree. Here's what Nate says to Colin when Colin comes in there after he calls him, and he says about Jamie, and he says, you see Jamie and Danny are like Picasso and Gauguin. Is that how you say Gauguin? I don't know. I'm not a painter.
I won't attempt it. I'll mess it up.
It says they're artists, and Colin, you paint too, but your work doesn't end up in museums. It hangs at, well, you're like a painting at the Holiday Inn. You don't inspire, you don't move people. You're there. You cover a bloodstain. You do the job. So just do the job. So, and I think you bring up an excellent point. Yeah, I guess I'll retract the word evil. To anyone who's offended by that, I apologize. But Shannon, I think you nailed it. He's becoming his father, right? Because he shows up in that scene earlier in the episode, getting breakfast with his parents, and it's right there on the newspaper. And Nate is so desperate for his father's approval that he calls attention to it by downplaying it. Said, "Oh, I guess they'll put anybody in the papers, right, Dad?" So he's trying to make his father look at it and address it. And when his father does, he does not get the response he wants. His father gives him some tripe about humility and whatever, and kind of steps on Nate a little bit. So he has to find someone else to step on to reclaim his status or his power in his own life. And that's where that kind of psychologically unaddressed situation can pop up in when what he does to Colin and what he later does to Will, because that's a real abuse of power. And for him to do it in the same manner that he probably experienced at the club was really shocking to see overall. And he says to Will, if you ever do anything to humiliate me again, I will make your life a fucking misery, which is such a shame, because Will gives him the Wonder Kid thing as a thing to make him feel good about himself. Will is trying his best efforts to be accepted by everybody around him. He's trying to people please. He's good at his job. He just wants people to, feel happy. And he takes something that sweet, that innocent, and tries to destroy it with that comment. Because when it said Wonder Kid, the paper, he sure as fuck didn't have a problem with that. But because he got a jersey like that, he thought Will was making fun of him. God forbid a guy he sees lesser than makes fun of him. It drives him up a wall. And the negative comment is a great thing for you to bring up. Shannon, in the Schmodown, I'm telling you right now, a lot of players, I've had conversations with so many players who go on YouTube and read the 1 or 2 comments amidst the 40 positive ones, and they want to highlight those comments. They want to retweet those comments. They want to, highlight, what do you call it? Augment those comments or put them on blast on their social media. And all that does is help the negative commenter feel like they got to you, and it gives you nothing in the end but a temporary moment of feeling like you got them by embarrassing them on social media. It shows you can be gotten to. And I've told so many people in this sport on, never read the comments on YouTube, because if you're prone to have a negative comment affect you more than 5 positive ones or 10 positive ones, it's a bad idea. It's a bad idea. So we're seeing that with Nate. Him constantly scrolling social media is just a recipe for danger, brother.
Yeah, it's that dopamine hit.
Yeah.
Of, we see, people love to see their names in print.
Yeah.
And until it's negative, and then you obsess over it. So
right.
I know when we first started Geek Buddies, you had said the same thing, and I would kind of like, oh, I'm fascinated about this. Like, I'm so curious about this, and like, luckily, I don't think we get a ton of negative ones.
No, we don't.
We get some fair critique.
Sure.
But there was one during Falcon and Winter Soldier that resonated with me, and I have not let it go yet.
No, someone mentioned your resume, and you were like, "God damn it! I'll talk about my resume if I feel like it."
That one I thought was funny, but I was like, "Okay, you're gassing me up right now, dude."
That's the game. That's the game, unfortunately. Well, I know we're wrapping up here, because those are the 4 storylines that basically happened in the show. Where do you think we go from here with Nate? I mean, we've spoken about what we feel is going to happen next with Roy and Keeley and Ted and Dr. Fieldstone, and of course with Rebecca and Sam. Where do you think we go with Nate next? I predicted a few episodes ago, reviews ago, I think he's going to eventually branch off and coach another team, and them and AFC Richmond might be battling next season. I don't know if it'll happen this season, but might be battling next season. What do you think is the next step for Nate? Is Ted going to intervene? What do you think happens here?
I think Ted doesn't intervene yet, because Ted doesn't know.
Right.
I mean, I think Beard is a man of his word, and he's going to keep it. He's going to keep it between him and Nate. Right. And I think Nate will probably become a little slicker, and whatever abuse he's going to dole out, that he will be more mindful of who is around.
Yeah.
I think the opportunity to sit down and talk with Dr. Sharon will present itself, and he instead will go to another club. That's my guess.
Oh, really?
That's my guess.
Oh, so you think that's how he'll go? Interesting. Okay. I have a feeling they might try an intervention where it'll be Rebecca, Ted, Coach Beard, a couple of the players, Roy and Will, there to call Nate out on the carpet. I think that's what's going to send him to another club, because he's going to feel betrayed by them. But I like your idea better, but I have a weird feeling it might go that direction. But we'll see. We'll see. Or he gets redeemed. Who knows? And
you love a redemption story.
Jack, don't I? I usually do, but he's been unusually mean. Like, it's kind of an ugly mean as opposed to a desperate lashing out mean.
Cruel. He's been cruel.
Cruel, yes. Yeah. Cruel, yes. Great point, Shannon. All right. Well, there you go. There's our spoiler review for episode 7 of season 2, Headspace, for Ted Lasso. Thank you all so much for downloading this. If you're listening to us on the Outlaw Nation podcast feed, or watching it here on the Outlaw Nation YouTube channel. Shannon, thanks again, brother man. Where can they find you and everything you got going on?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow me on social media. On Twitter, it's at Shannon_McClung. On Instagram, at Shannon the Geek Buddy. And you can see me every week, twice a week, 3 times a week. I don't know. You can see me several times a week with Mr. Rocha on our Ted Lasso reviews. And you can see me with Mr. Rocha and Mr. Michael Vogel on our Geek Buddies regular show and our Geek Buddies reviews of What If.
Absolutely. We got one of those. One of those is out now. As you're watching this review, one of those is out now. And yes, we'll be recording it momentarily as we record it. All right. Thank you all so much. You can follow me at The Rocha Says on Twitter and on Instagram. Please remember to subscribe to the channel down below. We're so close to crossing 18,000 subscribers. If you've been enjoying the content, or if you enjoyed just this content, please do me a favor and subscribe and hit that bell button so you see when we're dropping all the new content here on the channel. Follow me on Twitch, The Outlaw Nation. They're all on Twitch. And head on over to the Patreon, patreon.com/John Rocha. There, see all the different ways you can help support all we're doing here on the Outlaw Nation. All right, that's it from us. Let us know what you thought of the episode down in the comment section below, and let us know what you thought about our thoughts on the episode in the comment section below. Give it a like, share it on your social media, and we'll talk to you next time. Another brand new review episode here for Ted Lasso on the Outlaw Nation. Peace.